so I made this bed to match the new set of cage liners that I have not made for my babies yet because I don't have not had time. But this is going to be their fall pattern, and this is going to be one of their accessories. Well, hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. I have missed you. I did not get a video done last week, which was terribly sad for me. I absolutely love making my videos. It's like my relaxation, if that makes any sense. But we're back, and in this week's video, we're gonna be making a simple, easy DIY round pet bed. This bed can be made in any size, so I'm gonna be making mine for ferrets, but you could make it for dogs, cats, you name it. You can absolutely change the size. I'm also going to be using faux fur for my bed, but you can use antipil or blizzard fleece. I will be offering these in my Etsy shop shortly, and this is just a really easy tutorial. It's nothing fancy, no drawstrings, no frillies, nothing, just basic. I think sometimes it's really nice just to have a basic round pet bed. So we are going to do that now. Without further ado, let's jump into the video and make some pet beds. Okay, so for this tutorial, you're going to need some sort of fabric. I'm using faux fur, but you could use regular fleece. You're gonna want a pen. You're gonna wanna have a ruler or some sort of shape. I have a cheat shape that I got. It's actually like a poster that kids draw on. I saw it at Joann Fabric and I bought it so I could use it as a template. You're gonna need a pair of scissors, some sort of clips or pins, and some stuffing. Okay, so what you're gonna wanna do first is you're gonna lay out your fabric. If you're using faux fur, just be caution, word to the wise. This stuff will go everywhere. So be prepared to vacuum when you're done. The other thing is, you're not, as easy as it may be to cut this all at one time, it's probably best that you don't and that you cut your shapes separately. You also want to make sure that you're cutting kind of with the grain. Like this is actually not as furry as some. So, and you also want to cut from the back. You don't want to cut from the top. So we're going to open this up. As you notice, the back side looks completely different than the front side. Let me see if you guys can get a good look at that. So we're going to want to trace and also cut with this side facing up. I'm just going to lay a piece out. Now I'm using this circle, which is a 17-inch circle, if I can get it. I'm just going to trace it onto the corner because I'm going to try to save as much fabric as I can. I can use it later on. Alright, so we're just going to literally trace a circle. So now you have your circle, and you're going to want to cut this out. So when you cut this out, you're going to want to use the tip of your scissors. Not big cuts. Just because of the type of fabric it is, and you're just going to go slow. Just cut it out slowly. It is going to be messy. I'm just warning you. And if you do buy this from Joann's, make sure you get it when it's on sale, or you get it with a coupon. Alright, and I'm just going to set this aside, and we're going to cut out a second circle. Okay, so now that you've done that, you should have two circles. I'm going to put the circles right sides together on top of each other like this, and line them up. They should line up pretty good, especially if you did what I just did, use a template. Now I'm going to take clips. Clips tend to work a little bit better than pins. You can buy these clips on Amazon. You can get them at Joann's. They're called magic clips, but they're really expensive. If you're looking for a cheaper version, get them on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description. We're going to clip all the way around. Okay. Now what you want to do next is, I went and I got two pins, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take about a 5-inch space, and I'm going to just put the pins in here. I'm going to hang them out the edge so that I see them. Okay, so now you should have it clipped all the way around. You should have a spot where you've marked your opening. So what you're going to do is you're going to want to, I have two pins, and you can see them, they're the green little pins right here and here. I'm going to start at one pin and I'm going to sew all the way around, and I'm going to stop at the other pin. So we're going to leave this open, and we're going to do a 1/4 inch seam, and I recommend using a straight stitch or a zigzag stitch. I'm going to use a straight stitch because I think it's just easier and cleaner, just easier. So let's do that now. Okay, so when you're done, you should have something that looks like this, and you should have an opening. Now you see all this fluffy stuff on the edges. You don't have to do this. This is optional. This will just reduce the bulk on the edges, and I'm recommending that you do this because it will go everywhere if not. So you can just pull it off any excess fur that's stuck on there, that's loose. Okay, so now what you're going to want to do is take your pins out, but hold them aside, and you can flip this right side out. You should have like a little circle. There we go. Just like this. Okay. So what we're going to do next is we are going to create the space where you can do one of two things, honestly. You can fill this with stuffing and leave it just as it is, and then close up your edges, stitch them shut with a needle and thread, and call it a day. You have a round bed. Or you can create like a center where your babies will sit, and there'll be like kind of a little wall, and that's what I'm going to do here. What you're going to want to do is if your circle is, let's say this is 18 inches, then you would get a 9-inch circle, and you would put that in the center so that you would have an even amount of space on all the sides, and then you would stitch that circle. Now normally when you're using regular fleece, you can draw the circle. But we can't draw the circle onto this because you can't draw onto fox fur. I mean, I don't know that you can. I don't want to draw on it. So what I did instead was I took 2 pieces of just plain paper. I taped them together. I'm going to take this because I know that this top of this lid is 9 inches. So we are going to trace this. I'm going to trace this. Now you guys can do this however you want. Okay. So now I have like a template. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find the center, and I'm going to sit this in the center, and you want to make sure that it's even on all, like there's an even amount of space on all 4 sides so that your walls sit correctly. So for example, I'm just going to measure, this is about 3.5 inches, and from the edge of the paper all the way around it's about 3 inches, and we want to just make sure that it's 3 inches all the way around, or pretty close to 3 inches all the way around. And for me, it's coming up 3 inches. And basically the way that you would do that is however big your main circle is, you would make a circle half that size, and then you would center it. Now, there's a couple things I want to do. These are things that I do. I don't know that they have to be done. These are just things that I do to make sure that my bed kind of doesn't shift around. I'm going to clip my seams in place here, so that my bed doesn't shift and I end up stitching it funky. I don't want that. Okay, so I've kind of just clipped my edges in place. Then I'm going to make sure this is centered, and I'm going to pin this in place. Now, I recommend that you leave pins where your opening is because this will let you know not to stitch there. So what you're going to do now is you're going to want to make sure that you mark a spot. Your opening is right here. And you're going to, if you notice, I marked 2 spots. So this is my opening here to here, and then I'm going to also leave an opening from here to here. So your openings need to line up. You're going to want to go over to your sewing machine, and you're going to want to stitch again from your pin all the way around to your other pin. Don't close it off. So we're just going to leave an opening which lines up with the opening you already have. Okay, so what I've done is I've moved my needle all the way to the right. My sewing machine allows me to move my needle. I have lined my presser foot up so that I'm going to take this guideline on my presser foot and line it up with the edge of the paper. You guys can see that. My needle is going to come down right on the other side of the paper, so I'm not going to actually stitch the paper at all. But I am going to use the paper as a guide to go all the way around. I'm going to start at where my pin is, which you guys can't see because it's behind all this. And we're going to go all the way around. We're going to leave the opening. So I'm going to try to do this while I hold the phone, but I'm not really sure. I didn't want to take my camera off the tripod to do this. So Basically, we're following the paper. So, and if it's too hard to stitch the paper, you know, a lot of sewing machines have these. You can also use these as a guide, which I do a lot. So you could line up the edge of this and you would know that once you were at this, so I'm doing 3 inches. So that would allow if I center my needle, I would come in at 3 inches all the way around. I don't know if that's coming across making a lot of sense, but you can use your ruler too if you know how to do that. If you're able to kind of watch both. It can be a little bit hard if you're not really overly familiar with sewing. Okay, so now we're at the other side. If you see where these are the pins marking my opening. So I'm going to stop when I get here. Okay, so now I'm going to take all these off. We don't need these. I'm going to take these out. All right, so now that you've done that, you should have like a circle. See the circle? It's hard to see, which is the point, but you have it. So now what you want to do is you want to get your stuffing or whatever you're stuffing with. This is the fun part. You're going to find your opening, and because you left an opening in this circle, you can stuff the center. Now my recommendation is that you don't overstuff the center, and the reason is if you overstuff the center, you're going to have this big bump in the center, and then it kind of defeats the purpose of the edges. So we're just going to put a little bit of stuffing in the center. I'm not going to put a lot because the whole point is to have this come up. And the more that you stuff the center, the less your sides will come up. It'll all kind of look like one shape. So I'm just going to put a little bit of stuffing in the center. Just enough to give a little cushion to my little cushy babies. So what you're going to do now is now you've put that stuffing in there, you need to sew that center circle completely closed. So go back to your sewing machine, try to go in where you stop stitching and finish stitching your center circle, your 9-inch circle or your smaller circle. Okay, so now that you've done that, you should have a complete circle. And you should still have your main opening. Now what you want to do is you want to take your stuffing and you want to go in and you want to stuff the sides. So we're going to do that now. Now I wouldn't make it overly, well, you can make it as stuffed as you want to. And you know, that's just what you can do. So I would do little clumps at a time. You might have to, this might take a little bit of finagling. It depends on how wide you made your sides. My hand fits inside here, so that's awesome. Don't bust your stitches, forcing your hand in there. If you have to, use something to push it in. So we're just gonna focus on getting the stuffing all around the edges. Okay, so now you've stuffed your bed like this. So now you got your opening, okay? And you need to sew that shut. And I don't use a machine for this because it would look really weird if you stitched it with a machine, I think. I just don't like to do that. So these I use a blind stitch for. Now, for those of you who have watched my tutorials in the past, I have done the blind stitch tutorial several times. I am going to link a video to how to do a blind stitch if you have not seen my videos on that yet. Basically, a blind stitch is the same thing as a ladder stitch. Essentially what that does is it hides your stitches. So basically when I stitch this shut, you will not see the stitches. You won't even know that it was stitched closed this way. It's a great way to finish a project and hide your stitch line. And to do a blind stitch though, you're gonna need a needle and thread, old-fashioned, old-school style. So we're gonna do that right now, and then we'll be we'll be done. All right, so now you have stitched it shut, and if you followed my tutorial on blind stitching, you will notice that you do not know where the opening is, so that's exciting. And this is it. This is your little tiny, very simple, very easy, can wash and dry in the whole 9 yards bed for your tiny little baby melon heads.